Welcome to the Smart Flow podcast presented by Jotform, where we feature top leaders sharing their smart solutions in business and life.
Hi, Chad Franzen here. I'm one of the hosts of the Smart Flow podcast, where we feature top leaders in healthcare. The Smart Flow podcast is presented by Jotform Enterprise, which is a HIPAA-friendly, no-code platform that empowers healthcare organizations worldwide through custom forms, e-signatures, and more. Their solutions enhance patient and provider experiences by streamlining intakes and automating administrative tasks, all in a secure environment. A great example of this is BodyBrave. They consolidated 5 separate platforms and replaced them with Jotform Enterprise. They obviously saved money, but also saved 120 hours of staff time in the first 6 months with Jotform's data collection and reporting tools. Popular cases for healthcare organizations include digitizing forms, replacing power-based processes, collecting e-signatures, and much more, so they can ultimately focus on delivering exceptional care. It's also very easy to implement. I've even used Jotform myself, so you really know that it's simple even for someone not specifically technically minded. Learn more by going to jotform.com/enterprise. My guest today is Marissa Ferraraccio-Shapiro, Vice President of Marketing at QualDerm Partners, a leading dermatology and aesthetics care company. With over 16 years of experience in B2C digital marketing, Marissa has held leadership roles at organizations such as DataPrize and QualDerm Partners, where she spearheaded initiatives like comprehensive digital transformations and website consolidations. She also founded Forte Marketing Solutions, a consulting firm specializing in scaling marketing strategies for small to medium-sized businesses. Marissa's work spans industries including healthcare, technology, and private equity-backed sectors, focusing on driving revenue growth and building impactful brands. Marissa, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm well. How are you?
Good, thanks. Appreciate you joining me. Hey, can you share a little bit more about your journey toward becoming the Vice President of Marketing at QualDerm Partners?
Sure. I was just talking about this with someone the other day, and we were talking about how your career journey, just like your life journey, is not very linear. And there's often a lot of jagged edges along the way. And, I started my career in public relations and advertising. I sort of envisioned myself being the Carrie Bradshaw in New York City, but the Marissa version. And, I quickly found that I had a good mix of right brain and left brain mentality, where I could look at data to make informed decisions around digital marketing initiatives. And so over time, I decided that I loved marketing more so than public relations and more so than advertising. So, I got out of the agency space and I joined technology companies, where I really got to get, a hands-on experience around just various digital marketing strategies, SEO, paid, social. It was right around that social media boom, in the early aughts and later 2010s. And in 2015, I joined a managed services provider called DataPrize, which is headquartered in right outside of Washington, D.C. And I joined as a, just middle marketing manager, and quickly found myself really having a seat at the table with the executive leaders of that company, and was quickly promoted to director of marketing, where I led the transformation of the company to sort of that small, medium-sized business clientele to more of the upper echelon enterprise level clientele. And in 2019, they started to pursue a buyout from private equity. And it was my first experience, moving into that sort of, experience and that trajectory of a company growth. And I worked through that purchase with the executive team and started building my way into that private equity world. And then over time, I moved into healthcare, sort of by chance. I was looking for a new opportunity and a new style of career, and healthcare, over the past few years has really become infused with a lot of private equity backing. And so I found my way at Anne Arundel Dermatology, which is a very large derm platform, really focused on like the mid-Atlantic. At the time, there were about 128 locations stemming from Pennsylvania all the way down to Florida. And I loved what I was doing, but I wanted greater opportunity. I had always envisioned actually transforming a company through digital activities. Mm-hmm. And to do that, you need investment. you need backing, you need support. And I found my way through some recruiters at Pinnacle Dermatology, which at the time was the pinnacle of derm platforms. So at Anne Arundel, we would look up to Pinnacle and say, we want to be them someday. And the recruiter had shared with me that their new equity partner wanted to fully commit to digital transformation. And so I was bought in, and I joined Pinnacle in July of 22. And about 4 months later, we acquired QualDerm Partners. So we went from being a 100 location platform to 158. And then at that time, I just took their marketing to another level, and that's where I got to where I am today.
Nice. Wow. That's awesome. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing. So as I mentioned, with QualDerm Partners, you've kind of been involved in website consolidation. How did that go? What were some of the challenges maybe you faced with that kind of initiative?
So we essentially had a brand identity challenge. Pinnacle Dermatology was what you would call a branded house. Mm-hmm. Every location that was acquired under Pinnacle was the Pinnacle Dermatology brand. Under the QualDerm brand, the local offices retained their name. And so you can imagine when Pinnacle and QualDerm merged, we had 158 locations, 50 different names, and 50 different websites across, no joke, 50 different CMSs and website platforms with a variety of vendors managing those websites. So not only was the P&L super bloated, but the ability to scale any marketing campaign or activation was just impossible, right? And so we wanted to move into more of a headless CMS where we could power all of our brands and also make it scalable for the size marketing team, that we had at the time. And so we undertook a large RFP process trying to determine if, WordPress engine or Kentico or what that process would look like. And we found an agency partner who helped us identify the best process for us. And we, within a year, transformed not only our brands into one cohesive brand identity, but we also transformed all 50 websites and moved them over into one platform, Kentico, and stood up all of those sites for really a focus on patient experience. And it made marketing's job a lot easier as well.
Yeah. So obviously you didn't do that all yourself. You it was under your leadership. I saw somewhere that you were the youngest female leader at DataPrize yes. at the time. How did that kind of shape your leadership, and how have you carried that forward?
It's a great question, and probably one of my favorite questions to answer, to be honest, because, I found myself really struggling with mentorship and not having the correct mentors in my life to really help me accelerate my career. And I landed at DataPrize. And when I tell you I still get chills thinking about that experience, it's true. The executive team, the VP of HR, who is also named Marissa, they were just phenomenal. And they were so culturally focused on driving excellence for our customers, but also for employees. And I joined that company, and the CEO called me into his office about 3 days later. And he said, "So your boss, we don't know what's going on with this individual. We don't know if they're going to return. Do you want a shot at it?" And I said, "Hand me the keys. Let's see if I can drive." And at that time, we were looking to completely overhaul everything: our website, our digital marketing, our event planning, our partnerships. And so he gave me essentially, an 8-month runway to run as interim, see what I could do. And he spent so much time with me, daily one-on-ones, weekly check-ins, bringing me into executive calls and executive meetings where I probably had no reason to be there, right? But he saw something in me and he believed in me. And yeah, I was, I think, 26 when they officially announced me as a director of marketing.
Nice. Very nice. So what would you say has been maybe key to your ability to lead a team, given your experience and what you're doing now?
I have this leadership philosophy, and I highly encourage anybody who's considering moving into leadership to pick a philosophy and to stick with it. And the leadership philosophy that I live by is to lead with love. I heard that somewhere, and I don't recall where, but wherever I heard it, it stuck with me and has been sort of my core values and my brand ethos for my personal brand since I heard it. And what I wanted to do was I personally wanted to cultivate a team that not only were high performers and would drive impact for the business, but who would trust in their leader to help them grow in their own careers. Because to me, it's absolutely, it's common sense. You build a team filled with trust and empathy and love, and they're going to perform and outperform your expectations. And I have completely bought into that. So wherever I have taken, my talents when I am building and developing teams, it's the first thing I tell them. And I think a lot of them probably initially think I'm a little cuckoo, but it works because it builds this culture of care and this culture of excellence, and they work hard for me. So I always recommend to any leader, whether you're a woman, whether you're, LGBTQ, whether you're a man, lead with love, and it will take you really, really far in your career. And your employees will remember you for it, and they will work hard for you.
Yeah, I'm sure that has a tremendous impact on the culture. What does that look like? Maybe like a practical example of leading with love.
I have a coworker who I have worked with for a really long time, and she has so much energy and so much talent, but she's a little shy. And when we get on her one-on-ones, I see this spark in her, right? I feel this body language. I feel this energy from her, but she's afraid to bring it forward during big meetings, right? And so for me, I take the time to help coach her in getting in front of these meetings and being prepared and using her voice to speak up and not be afraid. And that has really helped her find her confidence during these big meetings where she's presenting or owning a project or two. A second component that I think is really important is respecting their personal boundaries. And this goes such a long way. I have had bosses who have not cared if you're on vacation, who have not cared if it's 1 a.m., who have not cared if, your dog or cat died. They want you to get something done, you're going to get it done. And that just is not how I operate. And so when somebody comes to me with an issue, whether it's a personal issue, a health issue, a family issue, I say, go handle it. The work will be here when you get back. And oftentimes they sort of look at me like I'm a little crazy. Like, are you sure? And I say, you have a team here that will support you. And so because we do that interchangeably with each other and with, myself included, we always get the work done, but they always feel supported and knowing that the work will be here when they get back and nothing will get delayed.
How does digital marketing, as we kind of focus on healthcare, what role does digital marketing play in the competitive healthcare landscape today?
Have you ever tried to go and schedule a doctor's appointment and you can never figure out how to schedule the appointment online?
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I think for us, the biggest focus has been, why are we making it so difficult for patients to schedule appointments? It really should not be that complicated, right? If you can figure out, if Amazon can figure out how to do 2-day shipping, we certainly can figure out how to allow you to schedule an appointment and make it seamless. Half the time, you open up your phone, you click on the link and it opens up into a new tab and the tab disappears. And depending on your audience or your patient demographic, they're not going to know what that tab is, right? Or it's not mobilely friendly and you can't scroll. And then when you click and submit, they say, oh, sorry, we actually need to call you to verify information. And it's complicated. And what we have found is that over time, as we've transitioned from a call center to more of an online scheduling system and online scheduling platform, the patient experience has exponentially increased because they feel supported and they also know that they can book with us 24/7, 365. During this digital transformation period in 24, we moved, I want to say, of the 158 locations, about 150 of them to online scheduling. And it was, obviously change management needed to be put in place, but the experience in general has made everybody's lives easier. It's made our offices' lives easier. It's made our call centers' lives easier. It's made the doctors' lives easier, but most importantly, it's made the patients' lives easier. So for digital marketing, when you're applying that strategy at that top of the funnel, your messaging value prop is so simple at that point, right? 24/7, 365, schedule with whoever, whenever you want. And I think any patient you ask would say, that's such a relief. I don't have to worry about calling when I'm working or forgetting to call and then the weekend hits and I can't find an appointment block. So I think if you're going to do digital marketing in healthcare, you really have to step back and examine how you portray and how you display your patient experience online, or else your digital marketing efforts are probably going to be a little limited.
So it's interesting. So patient experience, customer experience is a big part of your marketing strategy. Like that's kind of what sells you. I've heard that like in the airline industry and maybe the medical industry, patient or customer experience is somewhere gotten lost. Like that's like it's more, customers are more of a pain than a profit center. But that must make you unique among your competitors, I'm guessing.
Yes, and I think that was one of the most beautiful things about the transition with QualDerm and Pinnacle. Building that brand where our main core value is patient excellence and ensuring that we are focused on that. And we're not perfect. We don't always get it right. And I think that most healthcare platforms don't get it right. But I can say with confidence that the people who are committed to improving the patient experience work on it daily. It is never forgotten because we realize our patients, what we provide to them from a medical care perspective. We want to be their provider of choice for their healthy skin journey for their entire livelihoods, right? Mm-hmm. And so not having a good patient experience is just nonsensical, to an extent. Mm-hmm. And I think, the data has shown the retention component is the most important when you have a strong experience up front. If the patient can't get in to see you, they're probably not coming back to try again. They're probably going to go someplace else.
Sure. Are there any, you've done marketing in a variety of sectors, not just healthcare. Are there maybe some unique challenges of marketing in the healthcare industry compared to other sectors?
I think the most challenging part is it's so human-centric, right? Mm-hmm. I think for us, it's balancing between a focus on how do we achieve our goals, how do we provide great patient care, and then how do we deal with the elements that we can't control, right? I'll give you an example. In the winter months, when the weather is bad, it's hard to get to the offices, right? And you can't control for that. And so the challenge that you have with marketing is you can drive patients to your website all day, every day. You can get them excited about your brand all day, every day. But if weather hits and your doctors can't get to the office, it's going to make it challenging for the patients to have that good experience that we want them to have. So for me, I think that's been the most challenging part about healthcare is that there's so many elements and variables that are out of your control. Or when you work in tech, mm-hmm. It's a little bit more of a thing that you can move around and less relied upon with humans.
So this, as I mentioned, this podcast is powered by Jotform, which is about creating efficient workflows. What have you found to maybe be the biggest bottleneck in terms of process or workflow for QualDerm or any other place?
I think in general, the biggest bottleneck is typically cross-functional collaboration, especially as companies grow and get bigger. And in this remote work that we live in, right, you're not always able to just hop in next door and discuss something with somebody. And I think having a system in place where all of the relevant cross collaborators are involved in those decision-making processes mm-hmm. is so important. But what I have always found frustrating in any organization is ensuring alignment with every piece that you have moving. And when you're in a growing company, it's really hard to do that. So, I think between tech or healthcare, focusing on that cross-functional collaboration and that that workflow that you're mentioning, right? How do you build a workflow or build a process to have all of the stakeholders involved and informed?
Is there maybe a tool or an app or software that you have used recently that you found particularly valuable for you?
I would say that there are probably two systems that we currently utilize that I find really valuable. And I have seen a huge improvement in process now that we have these tools. One of them is Kentico. And what Kentico has allowed us to do is it has allowed us to streamline our website content work in a way that keeps all of the relevant parties informed. So you no longer have to send an email, send a link, send a Slack, update this individual over here. It can all be built within the workflows that they create within the system themselves, which I think is phenomenal. And I think has really saved, my team a lot of time since we are smaller. I'm also a big project management system girly, and I love a Monday.com. I love a Basecamp. And what we have found is a lot of the times when you're working with offices who have a day job and have full-time, very important responsibilities, they often just need a ping to let them know what's going on, but they don't want to be overwhelmed by email, right? Mm-hmm. So when you set up a project management system that informs people of what's happening through daily activities or timelines or app notifications, it makes their life simpler because they know what's happening over here. They know what marketing's doing, but they don't have to worry about opening their email, sorting through everything and reading, 75 updates for the day. So I think that those components have at least helped productivity and efficiency. But I think in general, all of the industries have a lot further to go as it relates to just improving those processes.
I have one more question for you, but first, tell me how people can find out more about QualDerm Partners.
They can visit QualDerm.com. That is the corporate website. And then from there, they can also visit all of our various sister locations and child locations. We're located in 18 states. And like I mentioned, have 158 locations across the country, including Mohs surgery centers, plastic surgery centers, as well as your general dermatology and cosmetic dermatology spaces.
Okay, awesome. Hey, last question for you. So I'm sure there are a lot of marketing leaders that maybe transfer around to different kind of fields or different industries. What advice would you give to somebody who's got experience doing marketing, but not experience in healthcare, maybe looking to enter the healthcare space?
It's a great question. If you're interested in entering the healthcare space, my first recommendation would be to scour your network and see if you can find anybody who works in some capacity in healthcare. It doesn't mean that they have to work in a hospital setting, right? Perhaps they work in an office. Perhaps they work in a platform, that's more D2C based, but based in healthcare. And get on the call with them and ask them questions. Have them explain to you what working in healthcare is like. Because I know for me, when I made the jump from Dataprise to Anne Arundel, I had no idea what to expect. It's such a different and unique industry. And I think setting yourself up for success really involves a lot of research on your own. And once you've had those conversations, I would empower yourself to look at all of the websites that you can find locally or nationally, and look at what they're talking about, look at what the mission, vision, and core values are, and look at the patient experience. Because I think if you can walk into these industries and say, I know how to fix the problem that you have, whether it's scheduling with, doctors, providing a better patient experience, scaling, you understand what kind of competition is out there. And, if I could look back into my crystal ball and go back a few years, I would have done that to be more successful at the early onset.
Very interesting. Hey, Marissa, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time and all of your tremendous insights. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Flow podcast. We'll see you again next time. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and go to jotform.com/enterprise to learn more.